We're entering a new era.
Welcome to Roxanne and Chantel, formerly All About TRH. So same cousin, same unfiltered opinion, same reality TV obsession, just a bigger, bolder next chapter. What started as All About TRH has grew into something that we never imagined. Ranked #1 on Apple Podcasts, interviews with reality stars that we grew up watching, a community that feels like a group chat came to life. None of that changes. We're bringing it all with us. We're still breaking down reality TV, pop culture, the drama everyone's talking about, plus the deep dives and exclusive interviews you know us for. So thank you for growing with us. The rebrand is just about leveling up, not starting over. Welcome to the next chapter of Roxanne and Chantel.
Yay, I'm excited.
Yes. And today we're joined by Devonta Anderson from Love is Blind. His relationship with Brittany quickly became one of the most talked about storylines of the season, sparking conversations about love, expectations, and whether the experiment really works. Today, we're diving into everything behind the scenes, from the pods to the backlash. What production cut out during the reunion, all
You
of
guys,
it.
it's so good. I
Yes.
was like at the edge of my seat, like asking, I was like just excited to ask the next question from word to you. It was really good. It was a great interview.
This is one of the most interesting, I would say, interviews we've had in a very long time. So let us know what you guys think. Be sure to subscribe, and we hope you guys have a great day. Hi, Devonta.
Hey, how are you?
Hi,
Good.
can I call you Devo?
Oh,
Yeah, you can call me Devo, whatever you want.
Okay.
The internet has a lot of names for me right now.
yes. Well, your relationship quickly became one of the most talked about storylines throughout season 10. And we just have so much to ask you. We're so invested. And we feel like we didn't see a lot of you. Like at the reunion, I had so much more questions. So I'm excited. We're both so excited to have you on. And we want to kind of start with the basics. Like, how did you even get cast on this show?
Yeah, so with this go around, I say this go around. So when I was actually living in Charlotte, I got reached out to, but I was actually with my ex-fiance during the time, so I of course didn't do it. Then when I was back in Ohio, I saw like a casting. I think my cousin had sent it over to me, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. Then my brother was like, yeah, maybe you should do it, and I was like, all right, maybe I'll just fill out, see how it goes. And it kind of went radio silence for like a few months, and then I want to say it was like a week before where I was like, got a call at like 10 p.m. and it was like, hey, we're gonna go with you. And I was like, what? It was like kind of at that moment where I started like freaking out, where I was like, what is about to happen? And then next thing you know, flying out and phones are gone and you jump right into the experiment.
And
Wow.
have you watched the show have before previously or not really?
Never watched a single episode.
Oh my gosh.
Never seen it, had no idea. I think it was like the night before I was leaving. I was like, well, let me at least watch like one episode, see what like happened. But again, it tells maybe a 25% of the story of what actually goes on.
Why did you feel ready to get married in such a non-traditional way?
Yeah, I think for me, I was like, one, it is a cool experiment. So after going through it and looking back, I think it does put a lot of things into perspective, like what we do in the dating world, because it's like, okay, do you have a certain type that you go after, or is there something that you're doing in the dating world that's not working? And with this, it was like there were zero outside distractions. The main thing that you're focused on is building an emotional connection, which I feel like a lot of relationships fail because we're natures of the beast where it's like maybe the attraction is what attracted you to you that person first, so it's like the emotional, you're like, I don't care, if she's really good looking or he's really good looking, so I'll just put all these other things that are important to me to the side because it's like, oh, they're a good looking person. So I thought it was a cool experiment, the whole concept of the idea.
Did you really think that you were gonna go in and propose to somebody? Like that was your hope, or did you were like, let me just try?
Yeah, I mean, I went into it thinking, I think at first I was very skeptical. Like the first 2 days, I was like, there's just no way. But as time went on and you continue to talk to this person, and I don't know if it's like not having the TV or phone or anything like that that made you kind of like psychologically be like, oh, I can't wait to talk to this person. I'm so excited. But you did start to build like real connections where you're like, man, I really like talking to this person. I want to continue this. I want to see where this takes us. So I do think, going into it, I was like, I don't know if it could happen, but it did.
Did
Yeah.
they not show you having an emotional connection with anyone else? Because like what we see is just like really it was like really pretty much Brittany. Was there anyone else that you kind of like were excited to see and talk to while you were in there?
Yeah, I would say it came down to I kind of had like a top three or four towards the end. I know for a while I dated Bree, I dated Ashley, I dated Brittany, Christine
Uh-oh.
was in there, Bree Thomas was in there. So it obviously, as you know, as each day goes on, but I would say it was around like those four towards the end.
And then you went on a trip with them.
I know that's what I was
Yeah.
gonna say. I was like, I don't know if we're jumping in too much, but no wonder it's like him going on
Yeah.
trip with Brie and Ashley is like a
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well,
I can,
yeah, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say I can address that unless you guys have questions about that.
We
Well, I
do.
mean, we do have questions about that. What was your mindset going into that thinking, I'm not going to tell Brittany? I'm sure you knew Brittany's a very emotional person. Like this is something she's probably going to get upset about. What were you
Yeah.
thinking?
Yeah. So great question. So with this, the timeline with Brittany and I is just a little confusing towards the end. So as you guys see the ending scene there, which we'll get into that just because
Yeah.
everyone's like we'll be in touch with a crazy line. There's actually more to that story. But kind of towards the end of our relationship, towards the end of filming, after that, I was like, hey, I need to go home. I need to clear my head. I need to get away from all of this because for the past 4 weeks, cameras have been, shoved in your face. You're going through a lot of emotions. You're meeting friends, you're meeting family, all these people saying like, oh, they're so great, they're so this or that, like get married, this. And I was like, I started to feel like I wasn't making a decision for myself. So like when I had went home, and again, I don't even remember saying going on a work trip. I mean, if that's what I said, that's what I said. But I was like, I don't imagine I said I was going on a work trip on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I don't work on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So that part of the story I don't really remember. It's been over a year ago. But I was like, hey, I can't show up right now for this. And that's where I addressed it at the reunion, where I was like, hey, I needed to be a little bit more direct. Cause to me, I was like, I'm done with this relationship. We've made it this far. I'm like, I'm not comfortable getting married. And I was like, I don't know how much more that I needed to know to be like, hey, if we're not going to get married today, I don't know if we'll ever get married. And I'm not just going to date to date. So I think it kind of got to the point of like, I think I needed to be a little bit more direct. But then, yeah, I actually went to dinner with Bree. It was, I don't even know when it was. And I had spoke to Connor before. Anytime like I even talked to Bree, I'm like, hey, do you mind if I call Bree about this? And it could be something about like work or anything. So Connor was aware of it. He mentioned like he thought it was a girls' trip, but Bree asked him if he could go. He wasn't able to go. Bree asked Parker to come. Parker couldn't go. So like him just kind of poking fun. He even said he's like, I might make a video on it because so many people are blowing it out of proportion. And to say it's a girls' trip, Bree had like 20 people at her apartment and like 10 of them were men. So it was
Oh.
it wasn't a girls' trip by any means necessary. And Pre not having my back during the Airbnb. So the first night my Airbnb got canceled, but she's like, hey, Bree's not gonna be here until tomorrow, so you can stay here. Stayed on the couch. The next day I went to the Airbnb, which I was like, I have a receipt, I have a review from the host, but I'm like, I don't need to, correct a false narrative, but I don't know what Pre was going at after that. I actually left the trip a day early and didn't even watch the Rufus concert with him because I personally was like, I'm not a fan of Pre, so I was like, I didn't want to be around them. So I actually watched the concert by myself. Bree texted me and was like, hey, are you good? And I was like, yeah, I'm just like, I'm not going to surround myself with people. And, I'm not going to go into details why I'm not a fan, but I actually ended up leaving a day early, and they picked me up from my Airbnb to take me to lunch, like when we all went and got lunch. So to say like I never got my own Airbnb was crazy.
Yeah, like she definitely made it seem like you like had this all planned in your head. That's why like you're so like nice in the sense of like not showing the receipt because I'd be like, here's my receipt. This is my Airbnb. I don't know
Yeah.
what you're talking about, and like, but you were just like whatever, let her have her moment. But
Yep.
that is great clarification because that is crazy, especially when knowing that there's so many other people other than just you three and one boy.
Well, we did a recap and we were like, something seems off about this. We said in our recap we didn't understand what she was saying, and you don't seem like the type who would want to sleep like with like at someone's Airbnb and not have like your own space. Like from what we see on the show, you don't seem that way. So I was like, this is not adding up right now. So
Yeah.
I'm glad
No.
we clarified.
No, exactly. But yeah, I was like, eventually it'll come out. But again, I was like, if I sat here and tried to set out or turn off every single fire, it'd just be a waste of time. Cause I'm like, I know the truth and anything like that. And I know Brittany has made comments like, oh, I'm sure I know his motive because like she knew I dated Bree and Ashley. She wasn't a fan of them. And I was like, you have to understand, we all dated behind a wall. You act like, I had been in a serious relationship with them. Connor's one of my best friends, and I was like, him and Bree were still dating, and then while we were there, Bree was like hard set on setting Ashley up with one of her like friends that were there. So I was like, to think I had motive, I was like, I had zero motive there.
Do you think that like when they're like kind of telling them they're not girls just because like maybe they didn't tell Brittany, but if they're not friends, then like why do they need to tell Brittany? Like is that really what was the case? Like they really weren't that cool and that they weren't that close?
Yeah, I think Brittany made it very clear that she didn't like Bree and Ashley during kind of like the time of filming.
Oh.
And when we were in Columbus, because even like post filming, like I would hang out with Bree and Connor and their group of friends like all the time. So I think it was just, Brittany didn't really like them, so it was just kind of a way to be, you know, to whatever. And same thing with Bree. I don't know Brittany and Pree's relationship, but from my relationship with Brittany, I knew she already didn't like Bree and Ashley just because we had dated in the pods, and Ashley came down to being like one of like the top two for me. So I think
Oh.
that was just I think she had like her preset motions with that. So
Which
I
that
will
does make sense a little bit.
Yeah, I will say
Yeah.
going back though about the whole Connor thing, when he said that, it made Bree look bad. So I'm also like, why? And he hasn't come out and clarified anything. And she's getting a lot of crap on social media too. So I was the whole thing, something seemed off. So that clarifies everything.
Hmm.
yep, yeah, more to come there, but yeah, no,
Yeah.
all good. And Bree and Connor are good. So
Yeah. What was it like watching yourself on TV though? Going back, like watching it. How does that feel?
Oh gosh. Well, I guess for the parts that I was able to see, because I still haven't watched the full episode, I was like, if I weren't on this show again, I wouldn't have really any interest in it. And I was like, I can't watch a full episode. One, knowing a lot of the people on there and watching myself, I'm like, they left out so many parts of us. Like so many people were like, hey, even that soccer video of you at the reunion, they're like, that's the Devonte we know. And I was just like, yeah, there were so many other parts that Brittany and I actually had a lot of like cool moments, but like we're not shown. It was almost as if every scene I looked miserable or like not it was always after like we were in the pool, something like crazy. So I was like, one, I never looked presentable. Two, it was like always like the same conversation over and over. So like watching myself on TV, I was just like, man, this is just not like me. But again, once you get stuck on a storyline, that's just kind of seems to be the common theme throughout. So I thought it was weird. I hate hearing my own voice,
Yeah.
and we're our own worst critic. But I mean, still, it was still a cool experience to see yourself on Netflix, I guess.
You
I
looked
think you did
anxious,
great. Yeah.
like anxious throughout the episodes. Like I feel like that, like when I would see you, I'm like, he like looks like he's having anxiety, like deep down. And
Oh
I don't
yeah,
know if like you felt that a lot or it was just that was what they were trying to show off.
I think that's like another question that maybe us viewers don't know is like, do they really encourage you to keep staying? Like, did you ever tell them like I want to be done with this? Like I'm done. Like I don't want to continue doing this. Like at any given point during the filming process, because you kind of knew, or and then they just encourage you again, like keep going through the process, keep going through the process.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. And again, like there's still like free will, but the whole goal is to encourage you to like work through these things because they're like, well, outside of this, you might not get the same coaching or advice or whatever it may be. Because we did do some like experimental things like the conflict conversation. There was a scene, I don't remember what episode, but when we were sitting on the couch, we were like kind of talking through these things where it's like, okay, you sit and be quiet. And it was kind of like things like that they were helping us guide along conversations where it was like, yeah, you're probably right, I probably wouldn't have done this like on my own. So and there, the whole goal is like, hey, maybe sometimes you don't know until the altar. There's different stories with some of the different couples that end up saying yes at the altar and maybe they weren't planning on it. So definitely encouragement, but definitely your own choice of what you wanted to do, continue or whatnot.
And you're thinking like, no, I know, I know if I get an
Yeah.
altar, no matter what, I know.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into Brittany. When did you realize you are going to end up proposing to her?
I would say it came down to it was kind of towards the end. So there was again moments in the pod that weren't shown between us where I think she was a little upset because I had continued dating people, and I want to say it was day 4 or 5. She had got rid of everybody except me. So
Wow.
there were just conversations that were happening on the women's side that I didn't know until after. I don't want to say names because I'm not trying to start any more drama, but it was like post shows like, oh yeah, well, she said you were writing her love notes every day. So I thought you guys were like locked in. And I was like, never wrote her one single note. Again, whether that's true or not, but I was like, what was going on the other side of the walls? Did it damage any of the other relationships I had? But it kind of got towards the end where she was getting not frustrated, but she was like, yeah, I hear you're still dating other people. And I was like, well, this is a big life decision. So I'm not just gonna, I was trying to see the experiment through the full way. So I was like, I want to continue having the conversations like with other people, figuring out. And like everyone knows it's not like secretive that you're still dating other people. And that's why you hear us say like, oh, our number one, our number two, because like we refer to them as that. So no one knows who's who. But I think it was like towards like day 8 or 9, like we just had like a really good convo. And I was like, I have to go sleep on it. I was like, I have to like feel it, and make that decision like from my heart. So I think I want to say it was like day 8 or 9, I believe. So it was kind of towards the end.
What was it about her that you were like, I think she'd be the one?
Yeah, I think a lot that we connected on like in the pod was like faith. We had like good conversations about like how we want to give back, how we want to serve like the community, things like that. And for me, that was like really important. For me, my grandfather was a reverend, and he was a very giving man, and I was like, that's one of my idols in my life. So I was like, that to me, that's important because at his funeral there were like 1,500 people that came. So I was
Wow.
like, that's how I want to be like remembered, is like someone like him. He was also like a sheriff. He was putting money on people's like commissary books in the jail that he worked at. Just random inmates. So it was like that to me was like really important, like someone who aligned with like my values and how I want to like go out and be remembered.
It was
Right.
a really sweet moment when you guys prayed together. I think they showed that once. I don't know if you guys did that all
Yeah.
the time, but it was a really sweet moment when like you guys did that together. Because it finally showed like a really like vulnerable side to you guys of like connection, like
Yeah,
commonality to you two.
yeah, yeah. No, so
Because
I would say that was kind of like what really separated things.
So you end up seeing Brittany, and there's been a lot of discussion about your woman of color comment.
Yep.
What did you mean by that? And, what's your response to everyone commenting on that?
Yeah. Well, one, I'll say I'll address the reveal. People were like, "Oh, he's not into her." When I tell you that was the most stressful moment of your life, it's like you're standing behind this wall. They're getting the lights ready, so your shadows, and that's why you see so many poses by Amber because it's like they're getting the light ready. You're standing there, and as soon as those doors open, off to like your right, there's probably like 90 cameras and people just like right there. So
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, you're sweating, you're nervous, you open up, and it's, I don't know, it's like 30, 40 yards. So it's not like 10 feet away. So it does take a minute to be like, what am I looking at right now? And your adrenaline's like so spiked high because after the reveal, you get like 15 minutes. I went back to my hotel room and I slept for 14 hours straight because it was just like the adrenaline like spiked and just crashed. So
Oh,
that moment where people were like, I'm like, you have no idea what you're feeling in that moment, where it's just like this is all new. You're seeing someone for the very first time. Like I didn't know what people wanted me to do, like a cartwheel, run down, and you know. But anyway, to address the woman of color thing, there was something shown at the reunion. Unfortunately, it did not make the final cut in the edit. Well, they asked Nick asked Brittany. He was like, "Well, did you have a conversation with Devonta if he's ever dated a woman of color?" And Brittany on stage says no. And they're like, "Well, we actually have an unseen like clip." So they pull it up in front of everyone, and the clip goes something like verbatim. I know Brittany was like, "Have you ever dated a woman of color?" And this conversation is happening in the pods. And I was like, no. And then I was like, well, actually, I have. I just haven't gotten into a serious relationship. But I was like, race doesn't matter to me. So that conversation was actually had in the pods. So the woman of color comment came from during those interviews, you know, you're being asked, like, were you surprised she's a woman of color? And if I say, no, I'm not surprised, what's the one thing you think you're going to hear back? Because if I say, no, I'm not surprised, people watching are like, what are you not surprised about? So me having to repeat what was asked of me was woman of color, which was used by Brittany in the pods like during that date. So me saying that wasn't me being like a woman. I was like, how I do when do I ever refer to someone as one woman of color? I said half of my family is black. My grandmother is black. I was like, to see all these like false narratives and like people posting online like, oh, he hates black women, this or that. I'm like, it's absolutely insane. Like I've had girls that I've dated in the past like reach out to me and they're like, do you want me to make like a post because they are black girls? And I was just like, I was like, no. I was like, there's no sense of like feeding into this like nonsense. My high school crush for like 6 years was a black girl. So I was just like, she was like someone who like reached out to me, and like she's married, but she's really close with like my best friend's like older brother and like their wife. And she was like, I'm about to make a video. And I was like, there's just no sense in it because it's so silly. So people were like, doesn't he know he's like a person of color? And I'm like, yeah, I know.
yeah.
Me saying woman of color was literally repeating what I was asked, so the viewers
No.
knew what I was talking about.
And I thought that 1000%, because I was like, that is weird to say that when I didn't really know 100% your nationality. I don't think they ever said that too. So we're like, is he mixed? Is he not? But I was like, there's no way they didn't feed that to him to say, like, or like, because we know how it is, like when they ask you interview
Yeah,
questions.
we know the industry and how
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
ask you questions and you have to restate the
Yeah.
Yep.
question and they'll say restate it. So like in confessionals, they do that all the time, which it sounds like they did that. Why do you think at the reunion they wouldn't? Because I'm sure they see the hate that you're getting regarding that specific comment. So why would they not share that just for clarity?
Yeah, that's a great question. I thought them bringing that up, they were going to show that because I actually had reached out and I was like, guys, like I'm getting a lot of hate, like even like death threats from like people about
Right.
this, where I was just like, am I allowed to address this? And it was just like, no. And I was like, well, that seems absurd to me, but not even to turn the subject, but the whole video that was released of Brittany quickly got shut down on Reddit, where it was blocked from being posted, it was blocked from being commented on, it was kind of like swept. And I have my assumptions of how that happened so quickly. So to my point, it's just kind of like I don't know. But it was just kind of like, we're gonna set you on fire and just leave you on fire. So I was kind of like, I don't even know what the point of showing that at the reunion, and if you're not going to show the actual clip.
Do you think
Wow.
they like leave it out there because they want more people to watch the show then, because like it's more controversy? So then like they leave that out there and make sure that people think that? Is that like what you're thinking in your head? Because that would drive me crazy.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at how many like Reddit posts and Instagram posts and comments and engagements it's getting, to me,
TikToks.
yeah. So I'm just like, to me, being someone who does like photo and video work, where it's just like, what's going to get people's attention, and it's got millions of people's attention. So it's like,
Yes.
yeah, we're just going to leave this in here because it's going to keep getting clicks. And it's easy for on Brittany to like feed into that, because before they showed that clip, because she had said something like, oh, I'm going to look stupid or something along those lines. And in my head, I was like, am I supposed to feel bad? I was like, I've been getting drugged through the mud for this, and like you've been capitalizing from this, and you're the one who asked me the question. You're the one who referred to the woman of color. And on top of that, there was just like to touch on that, and I guess I can move on about it, but we did this thing. She was like, "Yeah, me and the girls," and talking about the rest of the cast, they were like, "Well, we played this game where we all closed our eyes and guess what we sounded like," and they're like, "Oh yeah, no what?" Like, so she never like leaned into actually who she was. Like, it was always like, "Oh, people say I sound white or this or that," and I'm just like, she was the one leaning more into all of that than I
I
ever
said she
was.
sounds like a Valley girl, but people say we sound like a Valley girl. But I was like, he for sure thought she was like a Valley girl because she sounds like a Valley girl. That's what I thought, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy
So
because they did the same thing to like I had your back on this. Like when we were watching it, I was like, I literally don't understand this at all because they did the same thing to Mike when they asked him about Emma, and he verbatim said like, "I've never dated an Asian girl." So it's like you could almost tell it's like they thought that that was going to be a thing, like trying to like catch you guys up, but it's like not. You guys both didn't care, and so that's why I was like, "What's the big deal?" Like I didn't understand the big deal and why you were getting so much hate for it, especially because you're the race too, so it doesn't make no
yeah,
sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, I don't know, but that's just kind of what they ran with. But
Yeah,
I know statistically the percentage of like the people who watch this show, they knew exactly what they were doing with that. So
yeah.
unfortunately, I had to be the one that took the fire for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you clarify that because
Yeah.
there's just so much more that makes sense with you saying that. And we should have known Chantel too that he was restating that. Um Now, so Brittany seemed to need so much reassurance from you throughout the process. How did that dynamic feel from your perspective?
Yeah, I think it all kind of started in Cabo, in which the viewers can see like some of the fight that had happened. And I don't remember. I think that was either after the cocktail night or the pool party day, but I don't remember which it was. I want to say it was the pool party. But obviously we were kind of getting wrapped up and we were getting ready to like get back into life. But I just had remembered like that morning where I was like, okay, there's a lot of emotions. I'm a little bit quiet, but it's like, we're here but we're stuck in a hotel room for like 20 hours out of the day, so it's just like there's only so much I can talk about. So I was like, being more quiet, and like this is 4 days of me ever seeing you, so it's like it's still brand new, like I've only seen you for 4 days like in person. So to kind of let that natural like thing, but it was just that morning of the pool party, I had mentioned something. I was like, "Hey, I really like that bathing suit." Like, this is me starting to like open up and start to compliment her. And I just remember her making a comment like, "Oh, that's the first time you've complimented me today." And it's like at 10 a.m. in the morning. I like how I am. I immediately like shut off like stuff like that. I don't know why, but I'm just like, all right, well, now I'm not going to do it again because like all you had to do, like say was like, thank you or something, where
Yeah.
it's like, I'm trying to like lean into this. And again, like what we're used to dating, like the people that I've dated in the past, like I've never had to do that. So like it was all new to me, where it was like if I didn't call her beautiful like 5 times by 9 a.m., I felt like I was going to be in trouble. And just like the reassurance of like being there and all lovey, like where she was talking about like when I wake up in the morning and I can't find where you're at in Cabo, we're in a 200 square foot like hotel room with a balcony. I was like, if you rolled over, you would see me sitting on the daybed with my book and journaling like every morning. It was very routine. So it was just a lot of that where I was just like, I think she was making it more dramatic than it needed to be. And I get it. I was like, I understand you need a lot of reassurance. It's not something I've done. So, something's got to give in this relationship where we kind of have to meet in the middle. And that's where I started to try. But when I would try, it would be like, oh, that's the first time you said that, or oh, this. So I was just like, all right, the backhand like that comes after a compliment immediately is going to turn me off and not want to do it again.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. When you say that you guys are in the hotel room, is it because production doesn't let you guys leave unless they're filming? So like you guys are literally like there has a security guard outside your door?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, unless we were going out to film, like we weren't out at the beach, we weren't out at the
That's
ocean,
so
like
crazy.
so that's just kind of where it was like, the scenes that were shown. I was like, there was 12 more hours of like us actually having conversation or having fun or like learning more about each other that just wasn't shown. It was just kind of like every scene, it just felt like this, where we were just kind of like,
Yeah.
we have to do this again. But it was just like, no, we actually learn about each other's families. Like we talked about like our upbringings or like what our goals were, like just so many other things. But yeah, I just kind of got to a point where I was just like, and again, I understand I'm going into this experiment, but like I say, you don't know all that happens until you're actually doing it. Where I was just like, man, like I can't do this anymore. Like I can't talk like anymore. I don't know what else to talk about. That's why some of the conversations is just kind of like, yeah, yeah, like, or people were like, oh man, this is what they're talking about. It's like, well, yeah, we just got done talking for 18 hours.
And
So it,
I feel like Brittany's the talker and you're someone who listens. And so I can imagine like doing that for 10 hours, not to take away from her. Like I'm sure she's super excited and I'm sure you did talk, obviously. I know
yeah,
there's this like thing. Nick Lachey came for you and he said, he's like, oh, like we're seeing you like work up a little more.
yep.
But that could also be a lot. Like so much is happening.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's just like, and other things on my mind, right? Like when we're in Cabo, it's like, okay, next we go back home. We're going back to like work. We're going back to like our normal lives. Like I was getting like back with my family, doing the stuff like for my grandfather. So it was like there's a lot on my mind
Yeah.
towards like the end of Cabo where I'm just like I'm there, but I'm kind of like mentally checked out. And she was like, "Well, this is the honeymoon," and I was like, "We're not even married." And like I know people gave me a lot of backlash for that comment. It's like I get it. Like we're there to have fun, and we did have fun. We had a lot of fun. Like we all had like a great time. We got to meet everyone the first night at the cocktail. Like we got to do these pool excursions. We cooked in like the middle of a garden. Like we did jet skiing, like sunset, like beat. Like we did a lot of cool stuff. So it wasn't like we didn't have fun. But I was like, to me, I'm like I don't know. There was moments where I just needed to like stop and be like, "Hey, real life is about to happen. This isn't real life."
Right.
And I was like, I get it. We're having fun, but not every single moment. I don't know. So I
Yeah.
think we just saw the world differently at that time and what we were, I guess, going through.
Where
Okay.
was your family? Like we see you meet her dad. I don't know if I missed something, but where was your family?
Yeah, so they didn't show meeting my friends. I don't really remember. Again, I haven't seen a full episode, but I didn't see like other people meet other people's friends. I know some people, I saw some families, but they didn't show like meeting my friends, which we actually went down to like my uncle's property, who has like a bowling alley on his property. Like
Oh.
we did a lot of cool stuff there. We had the four-wheelers out, the side by sides. And then we went to my family's and met my brother's wife, my like, and didn't show like any of that, which were also really good conversations. Like with my friends and with my family specifically, because there were just like some important things there that were just kind of like left out too. Where my brother had asked Brittany a question of like, well, what would you do if Devontae said no at the altar? And like, mind you, this is her first time meeting my family. She's like, well, I'd probably punch him in the face. And I'm not in the room while this is happening because they want that her to have that chance to meet with my family. And I'm just like, gosh, that's probably not the best thing to say to my family the first time meeting them. So to me, I'm just
No.
kind of like that. That's just a wild thing to say, but yeah, I don't know why a lot of those parts were kept out. I have no
Well,
idea.
I mean, it kind of shows you that Netflix has a job and they want to present a narrative. And so showing those conversations, someone could take that and be like, that's so inappropriate, like for Brittany to say. And then Brittany would not, look that well. And
Yep.
instead it kind of came across where like you just weren't looking good in it.
Yep.
Because I feel like I would have been like, ooh, that was like too much for her to say. And we would have,
Yep.
sure, Chantal, we would have clocked that right away and be like, that is too much. I would never have said that. So
Yeah.
it's crazy. And then, there's also this narrative. I don't think you're on TikTok. Are you on TikTok?
No.
Okay. So there's a lot going on TikTok, okay, with you and stuff, like with videos of you and all that. And there's this narrative like he didn't even introduce her to his family. He didn't even like his own mom and like it was because he was embarrassed of her and all these things. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so there's just no context because it sounds like they cut out a lot of good stuff or just the full picture, which I get. There's only so much they can show, but I think showing your family was a big deal. I think they did that for every couple. They show the families.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was just like, I don't know the reasoning behind there. And again, like too, like my grandmother and my mom, and mind you, we're on a crunch timeline. So when
Yeah.
we're in Columbus filming, like we're working and then after we're filming until I don't know, 10, 11, almost every night. So it was just like the limited time too. So I was like, my friends or like certain parts of my family. And at the time, like everything was still fresh with my grandparents, where like my mom and grandma, like the last thing they wanted to do was like have a camera like
For
shoved
sure.
in their face
Yeah.
during that time. So it was hard to find time outside of our work and filming to actually go meet. And you're on such a condensed timeline, where it was just hard. So like the people in my family who could make it, and like my sister lives in like Iowa, like I'm not going to have my sister come all the way here on a random Tuesday to like meet her. It just didn't make sense. So a lot of it, traditionally, yeah, you want to meet the parents and obviously have time with them, spend blah blah blah. But it's like we had like 2 weeks where it was just like there wasn't a whole lot of time to really do anything outside of what we were already doing.
Yeah, I think because now that you keep mentioning, I think like we kind of all forgot what happened to your grandfather. So people forget that you were actually going through and you're grieving during this time. Like that really is so crazy. And your family was too. So it's like they never really showed you mentioning that after. So I think like
Yeah.
everyone forgets that like that's what you guys were going through. And it makes so much more sense now that you're saying it too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was just a lot of like outside things where it was just like it was a weird time for my family where it was like this wasn't the priority. So I was just like, I was doing the best I can, and like our work schedules, didn't necessarily line up. And then again, outside of like filming, it was just like, well, my younger brother has my 4-year-old niece where my mom helps watch her while he's working. So like it's just so much that goes into it.
Yeah.
That it was like schedules were just so hard to meet. And half of my friends live all over the country, like New York, South Carolina, North Carolina. And it's just like, hey, can we get all your friends up here on a Tuesday to do a dinner? And it's just like, well, yeah, you can do the flights and stuff, but it's like they have jobs, they have kids, they have wives. So it's like it was so hard to like kind of combine it. So like when we did make those things happen, meet with my family and then meet with my friends, and to not see it, it kind of sucked. Where it was just like, whatever.
Yeah.
Um
You
uh,
Oh, go ahead,
go
Chantel.
I was gonna say because you do work a lot, and like we kind of know the job you're in, so you're working long hours. When you kind of had the conversation with her about prenups, did you have to bring that up to production first and say, "Hey, I'm gonna mention this"?
Uh, so I did have a conversation like with like my producer,
Yeah,
but that it was something I was going into the show like no matter what. And I even had a conversation in that conversation with Brittany where I was like, this isn't toward you, this is towards anyone, like
yeah,
anyone that I would have met during this experiment. I've known you for 21 days. I was just like, and again, that's something else you see out on the internet. It's like people are like, he's asking for a prenup driving a Honda Accord, and he's making this much money. I'm like, if I made $40,000, I would still be asking for a prenup. But and I was like, I never came across of saying like, oh, I make this. Like I went back because I was like, man, why are everyone like blowing their gasket over this? And I was like, you could, and I was like, you could make $0. I was like, when you're in a commission like role, it's like you don't know what you're gonna make. And there are plenty of like loan officers, even the ones in like the local channel that like are making like 70K a month. Like, I'm not gonna like say names, but there are people that just like are killing it.
Well,
And
we backed you on
I
that.
wanna I
yeah,
wanna say something because Devontae and I work at the same company, and I hire what he does, and he absolutely should be protecting his money, and they do make that type of money. So when I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, absolutely, I would for sure have that conversation, especially with the time frame of knowing someone there, and you work a lot, like you work hard, you've worked very in the position that you're in, you've worked very hard to get where you're at. So of course you're going to protect those assets. So that
yeah,
was absolutely true. I just want to reiterate that for
And I
anyone
think
yeah.
listening it.
and I think were you taken aback about her being like a little bit thrown off by you mentioning a prenup?
Yeah, I didn't know how she was going to react to it. I know a lot of people were like, "Well, he waited to the last minute to bring it up," and I was like, "Well, we had plenty of other things to work through." Where I was like, "I don't even know where we stand," and this was kind of like what you call like the last aspirational date, where it's like, "Hey, you need to get everything out on the table here." Like if there's anything left unsaid, because like her dad at the reunion, like, did you ask her all the questions? And it's like, well, yeah, I did actually.
Yeah.
Like I left everything out on the table, so her being like kind of thrown back by that and being like, well, I feel like it's a safety net for divorce or this or that. And I was like, well, no one plans to be spiteful until they have the opportunity. And again, like, yeah, like work is really great, but it's like it's beyond work, like investment properties, like retirement. Outside of that, like I own my media company and like I shoot weddings, I shoot for the NBA, I do NASCAR stuff. Like I people can look at my page and see the type of like work that I'm doing. So I was like, this goes beyond like just work. And like investment houses and like I said, it's just all of those other things that like were on the table where I was like, I know what I've had to give. Like my first 3 years at Rocket, I was working 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
before I got into like to the local channel where I was just like, I literally sacrificed 3 years of my year life to like get to like where I'm at. And I'm like, I'm not gonna throw that away. So her being taken back, it didn't really surprise me. But then literally 24 hour, I want to say it was like the next day, it was kind of like, hey, I'll do it. So I don't know. At that point, I was just kind of like, okay, great, because it wasn't. I mean, that would have been an absolute deal
Deal
breaker.
breaker.
Yeah.
Were you
Yeah.
hoping? Were you hoping she was going to say no, and then that was like your way out?
No, no, not
Okay.
necessarily. Um, I know a lot of people like took it as that, but I mean, it would have essentially been a deal breaker for me, but it wasn't like I wasn't using that as a
Yeah.
tactic. It was more so like, hey, this is smart. And like, my brother works at Rocket. He's very well off and we don't come from a lot, so it's like to have like the financial sense that we've been able to gain. It's like, oh hey, this, going into this, like we already had a conversation. So it could have been Bree, it could have been Ashley, like it could have been anyone. And I think a lot of people forget, like a prenup doesn't just protect me. Like, she owned her condo, like it's going to protect the stuff that she had too. So it wasn't like a one-sided thing. It's like I was like, whatever we have up to this point, that's yours, this is mine. Moving forward, that's a different conversation. So, and it is just so funny, like people like the Honda. I'm like, I'll drive that Honda until the wheels fall off. I could care less what car I drive. I work from home, so it's like I don't care. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to have like a BMW, again, not a crazy car, but I'm such a cheap guy. I'm like, why am I spending $1,200 to get my brakes changed?
You're
I was
smart.
like, I was like, this is stupid. I was like, I'd rather spend that money and go travel or do this or
100%.
Yeah.
whatever. But I just thought it was funny, like the Honda and like people
I
calling it
know.
a Civic. So I've been correcting them. I'm like, it's an Accord.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Like, get it
think too,
right.
like, unless you're in the industry, people don't really understand. But again, completely understand why you did that. I know you did get a little bit of backlash on it, but I think it's because people don't. I mean, even though you said you do really well, people don't actually realize that you do well and have worked hard. So
Yeah,
we can co-sign on that. So
I
you're
appreciate
well.
it.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a scene where you essentially say that you can't get married. Okay, you're about to go to, I think was it the day that you were supposed to go to the altar,
Yep.
and you're having that conversation with her that you can't get married. Um, what was like your thought process? Like, what made you come to the conclusion there is no way I'm walking down that altar?
Yeah, so I think that was the last conversation, if I remember correctly.
It
Yeah.
was.
Yeah, so this was where we actually spoke the day before, but it wasn't filmed. So we had spoken off camera because we kind of had a break between like the last day of filming and it was like 2 or 3 days that you had in between like your wedding date. Then you came back, got ready for that. So we actually had spoken off camera where I was like, hey, I can't get married right now. I was like, my head is just like it's not in it for marriage. And at that point I was like, I'm not even sure. Again, this is where I was like, I could have been more direct. I was like, I'm not even sure if it's their relationship wise, where it's like, I Brittany, has great features. Like she great features in the sense of like, she was caring, she was really nice, like all of that stuff was great. But to my point, I was like, I didn't have that feeling where I was like, if I'm gonna marry someone, I need to be excited about it. I
Mhm.
need to be like, I have to have that. And like I just never hit that spark with her where I was just like, man, like it's gotta be a hell yeah. It's gotta be 2 feet in for me, for anything. So I was like, marriage is like, I can't do it. And my conversation, I was like, I don't want her to go down the aisle in front of her friends and family and me say no just to fulfill a TV show. I was like, I'm not gonna do it. And for her to like say that at the reunion, I was like, yeah, well, I was the one who said that, but if that made you feel better, then whatever. Where it's like only my husband's gonna see me in my dress. Like I didn't want to go down the altar because I wasn't trying to bring your friends and family. And like I know she had family starting to come into town, this or that, but I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm trying to tell you now, so like we're not going down to the altar, and I tell you no because
Because you
I
knew
don't know.
she was going to say yes, no matter what.
Yeah,
And that
and
would
I
be humiliating.
exactly. And I was like, "You're a human. I'm not going to do that." So we had to come back, have a conversation. And when I was like, "Oh, I got to go," and people were like, "Where's he have to go? It's supposed to be his wedding day." Like it was kind of like a joke because like we were like, "Well, how are we like what are we supposed to do? How are we supposed to end this?" And the like, "We'll be in touch." It was just kind of like me messing around, being like, we didn't really know how to end the scene because we were like, all right, well, now what? Because they, trying to get clarification, like, well, what's happening? Why are you calling it off? This or that. And like the feel part for me was the hardest thing to explain to anybody because everyone was like, well, this or that and this. And I was like, this is exactly why this experiment is between two people with no phones and no TVs because there's no outside opinions. And I was like, hey, if I don't feel like this is my person, then that to me, that I was like, there's no explanation needed further than that.
So you thought like the conversation you had before, the night before, put her in the perspective of like, we're done. Like we're not even continuing a relationship. So then when you said we'll be in touch, like you felt that like there was no relationship anymore. Like she still thought that you guys were engaged and you guys were going to continue. Did you feel like you were direct enough to tell her like we're not dating anymore? We're not engaged anymore.
So no, not this combo. So the combo the night before was like, hey, I know for sure I can't get to the altar.
Yeah.
It wasn't until post filming, like post that last conversation, where I came back down to Columbus, had another conversation,
Gotcha.
where I was like, hey, like my head is not in this because like we hadn't even text for like 4 or 5 days. So I was just like, I just need to go. Like, I mean, we just got done with 4 or 5 weeks of like constant filming, constant this, constant that. Like where I was like, I never had a chance to just be by myself with like no outside opinion. Like where it was just like I could go and hang around people who would just like be with my friends. I spent a lot of time like with my grandma during that time where I'm like, this is the last thing I want to think about. And as I was like in those moments, I was like, we went through a lot, and I was like, I just know if what we went through, because it's an accelerated, it felt like 2 years of like getting to know someone with like how many hours you're spending together, what you're doing, the exercises you're working on, where I was like, if I feel like I can't get married to you now, I don't know that that's going to be any different in 6 months or a year. So I'm not going to continue dating. And that's what I wish I would have said more direct, so she knew it was like kind of clear cut. But I was like, my head's not in it, I can't show up for you right now, this or that. So like during that last combo post filming, in my head, I was like, okay, that's it. And she didn't take it as that, which
And
I can take some of the blame there.
Do
that was the conversation before you went and hung out and for the Rufus concert, right? So like you had a
Correct.
conversation. Okay, gotcha. So
you
and then she still didn't
yeah.
take it. Gotcha.
Do you have a
Correct.
hard time hurting people's feelings?
Yeah, yeah. So that was kind of like the recap too that I gave at the reunion. I don't think that part was shown, but I was like, that's always been my biggest room for growth, was like being more direct with people, no matter if it is going to hurt their feelings. So I know she said like, I told you to tell me even if it would hurt me, but I'm like, yeah, it's easier said than done, because it's like at the end of the day, I could see how invested she was, and I was just like, oh
Yeah.
man, like I'm gonna feel like a terrible person. And again, like, you don't win either way. So like the easier thing, yeah, would have been like, hey, this is over, like, whatever. But so yeah, I definitely think that is, but I mean, I've seen a lot of growth there where I'm just kind of like, hey, no, this isn't it, or just being a little bit more direct there.
Well, I
Do
think what was interesting was something you said was like, like the old me, I would have probably just married her because I didn't want to hurt her feelings, which is a really like,
which is
thank
really
God.
bad. Really bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think also like you really saw that she is a sweet girl and you don't want to hurt this person, but you also had to think about yourself, and she just wasn't the one. And I
Yep.
think people didn't like put themselves in your shoes, and I could understand that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because it's like everyone's online, saying like, she's out of your league, or she's so beautiful. And I'm like, it had nothing to do with anything. I was like, I didn't care. I was like, I just didn't feel it. So to each their own in those moments. And I was like, people are acting like if you were in a decision to marry someone for the rest of your life, you're telling me you're not going to listen like to your heart. You're crazy.
Yeah. I had a question like for production stuff. Do you get more incentivized like by money or by things if you pass the pods and then you do the experiment and if you get to the altar? Like do you do anything extra for that? Like if you actually go down the altar?
No, no,
Okay.
yeah, no incentives there.
Okay. So like people that just went down the altar just to say no, they just wanted to do it, huh?
Yeah, yeah, which I was like, that couldn't be me. I was like,
Yeah, okay. Because
I
I thought so because I was like, okay, there's no way they're not getting paid more or something to do this. Like they're bringing in their friends and family. People have, I mean, I know some people are probably like actors that are just sitting there, but or like random people, but like they're bringing in people just to say no, it's crazy, but that makes sense.
yeah.
Do you think Brittany loved you specifically, or do you think she loved the idea of being in love and getting married?
That's a tough question. I think I have like I think I'm kind of like 50-50 on there. And I guess I haven't put too much thought into it being a year ago. But if you ask myself a year ago, like kind of where I was at, like looking back on it, a lot of things that stood out to me, because I know people were like, it's not that big a deal that she bought the dress pre-show. And it's like, when you look
Mhm.
at it, when you don't have a boyfriend and you buy a dress, okay, that's a little weird. Then when people on the other side were like, oh, well, he's been writing me love notes every day and I wasn't, that's a little weird. And it was just kind of like a lot of the energy just kind of felt like, was it supposed to be me? Like, or what was your motive like coming into this? And again, you start to see that too. I think I was like, I don't know if she's more upset or her dad's more upset, because her dad has made like 4 or 5 TikToks about me now, where it's just kind of
Oh, I
like,
haven't seen that.
oh yeah, they're pretty funny, so you got to check them out. But it's just like I don't know who's more upset. And again, the very like sweet family, very like welcoming, where
Yeah.
it was just kind of like I think he made a comment of like, oh, we weren't that easy on him or whatever. We grilled him. I'm like, no, you didn't. As soon as I walked in, they were like, we love you. You're our son, and like this or that. I was immediately added to the family group chat, where I was just kind of again where I'm like, whoa, like I've
It's a
met
lot.
you guys for, yeah, I've only met you guys for like 20 minutes. So it started to feel like, I was just like being pulled in, like, okay, finally there's someone here that's ready to marry our daughter. Like let's wheel them in. So yeah, I guess I don't know. And I know Brittany, stated in her past 7-year relationships, she had a lot of like on and off problems with that. So I was like, her attachment style versus my attachment style were so different, where I was like, I don't know if she would have been attached to someone else like that or not. But um, yeah, I guess
It
I'm
took
not sure there.
it
I
took
do
me a
love her
year.
dad though. I do
Yeah,
love
he's
him.
sweet.
He's so girl dad coded, so you have to understand that. But
Yep.
were you dying at the reunion when they brought like I was covering my eyes when he was talking to you. What was your thought process when he was asking you questions?
Yeah, well, as soon as they said like we have someone in the crowd that like wants to talk, I was just like, oh gosh. And again, you have all these like you have all these camera that I don't know, there's like 200 people in the audience. I don't know, but you're just like, oh gosh, like where are we going here? And then they shine a spotlight on him, like, oh, here we go, here we go. So, and
Oh,
again, like I was like, it's so hard to be like, oh, I would have done X, Y, and Z, like when it's your own kid involved. So I'm like, yeah, I get it. But it was like he made a video post where he's like, I didn't have the chance to get closer. I would have done it not on stage and this or that. I'm like, you have my phone number. You saw me before the show. You could have talked to me after. I think it was a little theatrical of what he was trying to get after versus, you know, I say this because of what he's doing now post show, where he like leads himself as like a Christian man. Where I'm like, well, if you think I'm such a broken person, but you want to continue to degrade me, I don't know that how that lines up with like your Christian values and morals. So I think he could have approached it a little bit different if he thought I was like so broken or needed help. He knows like my father passed away. I didn't have a father present. So I looked at it as like, you got to do what you got to do. But I was like, I don't know that I would have done that at that stage. It felt a little theatrical, but I think I handled it well, answered the questions, was honest as I could with them, and just kind of left it at that.
You were sweating a little bit though.
No, definitely sweating. I think as soon as like I had to stand behind the door again before going out, I was like, oh, here we go.
Oh my, I was sweating for you. I'm telling you, I was so nervous. I'm like, they did not just fly the dad in to come at you. And he was like asking you questions. And I was like shaking I was like, wait, what? And it was a lot.
Yeah.
So I can't even imagine that. And at the reunion, you announced that you're expecting
You dropped a bomb on everyone.
and that
Oh
you're
yeah.
engaged. Like what? And did you think? And then you see her dad, and he's like, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Did you think maybe I should have told Brittany before, or no?
Yeah.
You didn't tell anybody.
No, I didn't tell anyone. So the only guy on stage that knew was Alex because we were in a holding room prior, and I was like, "Hey, I'm not going to be able to see the other guys before I do this, but I thought about this. I've talked to my family. I've talked to like my fiance about it, where I was just like, hey, I think this would be a really cool moment because again, I told Nick and Vanessa a lot of my story going into that was like, hey, I'm not coming in here to get married and to have kids. Like, I want to be a husband and I want to be a father.
Yeah.
I know I'm not like anyone perfect, but I was like, these are things that, I didn't have a father present in my life. So I was like, that's something I aspire to be. So that was a lot of the stuff that I talked about. And I was like, well, now's the time to say it. But to tell Brittany or anyone, I was like, no, I was like, this, everyone's going to find out at the same time. But it was like cool because like you heard some of like production or people filming, they were just like, like everyone like
Production
started.
didn't know.
No, so they had come and talked to me that morning. They're like,
Oh my
"Hey, is there any like new life updates?" And I was just in the hotel room, like, "Nope, same old, same old."
Oh, so you kind of played their game. You're like, you're not going to be able to control this narrative. Like, let me be able
Yep,
to announce it. That's crazy.
yep. Because I didn't want any like questions to come up like prior this or that, and I was just like, I'm just gonna give like a raw answer here. So
Yeah.
yeah,
When did you meet your fiance after post show? I think people want
so
to know the timeline.
yeah, so I this is a hard answer because I've actually known her since I was in college. So
Oh,
it
okay.
was yeah, so it wasn't like someone I had just met. It was like just a rekindled flame. And we have like never dated and it's just kind of like been friends throughout like the years when she's been dating someone and vice versa. Our timeline just never lined up. But no, it's just kind of like a connection. And I don't necessarily think like we were like, hey, let's get pregnant right now. But
Yeah.
it's like it happened and like everything happened exactly how it was supposed to happen. And now we have a little blessing on the way and we're going to be doing a gender reveal here in 2 weeks. But
Oh, that's so
when I say
exciting.
when I say like she's a ride or die, like someone to date someone through the process that I'm going through right now and like how she showed up for me, I was like, that was exactly what I was missing. Like
What was she?
so
What was she saying when she was watching this? Was she like dying for you? Like what? Because like I can't even really imagine if I was like watching my current fiance like going through this experiment. Like what the heck?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so she actually she's like me, she won't watch it. She refuses to watch it.
Oh, okay.
So she would see stuff here or there on like TikTok, but both of us have like our content preferences on Instagram and TikTok. Like anything Love is Blind related, like doesn't even pop up on our feed. So
Wow. Good for you
yeah,
guys. Like you like I'm
yeah.
being shielded.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we're just like we know what we're trying to build. We have like something that I think is the greatest gift in life to worry about where I'm like I don't care what's going on about this and like we're focused on like building what we have.
Good for you. Are you still in Arizona or where are you now? Columbus, Arizona?
So back in Ohio right now.
Okay.
Yeah, Arizona was just kind of like, want to get away for a little bit. That was always the place that I said I was going to retire was like Sedona, Arizona.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, so back here for now, and then we'll figure out once baby's born what we want to do. I could see long term like getting back to Charlotte. I loved it down there, and it's close enough if you want to drive and visit family. It's like a 6.5 hour drive back to the hometown.
Yeah.
Post show or post like now reunion, like are you still in contact with everyone that you like were close with, or is it kind of like fizzled out now that's been over a year?
So yeah, I'm still pretty close with Connor, Mike, Jordan, and Alex. And then Bree naturally is in that group just because when she's hanging out with Connor, she's usually hanging out with all of us.
Yeah.
So those are the people I stay closest with. I'll talk to like Parker here or there, but outside of that, it's everyone's kind of all over the place. And again, it's so hard to manage all of these different relationships. And like,
Yeah.
we also all have like pre-existing friendships and
Yeah.
whatnot. So like there's a big running like group chat, but may throw something in here every once in a while, but it's so hard to keep up.
Yeah.
Are you officially retired from reality TV, or would you consider doing another show?
I think I'm retired from any dating reality, but
Okay.
if you consider like Survivor reality TV or something like that, I may be interested. I tell my friends, I'm like, I would only do Survivor or Family Feud. I
Sure.
was like,
How
other
about
than that, I'm done.
Traders? Traders.
Oh, traders would be fun. I'm trying to get into that, so
Yeah.
I think traders would be fun.
What's one thing, about Love is Blind viewers would be shocked to learn? Was there like anything that or even just like the TV process, was there anything that you were like, I can't believe this is how it is?
I would say I think two things that like really shocked me is like one like every day was so routine. Like you would eat breakfast in the hotel lobby, you would get shuttled over to stage, which is this massive warehouse, but everything is like when you walk into stage, it feels like you're looking at a TV. It like feels so fake, but like everything in there is fully functional. But I would say like something like the viewers don't get a chance to really understand. Some of those pod dates are like 5 hours long. So like
Wow.
if you're dating multiple people, you could be on 3 dates for 15 hours straight. And mind you, you can use that time. Like if you have to go out and go to the bathroom or this or that, you absolutely can. So it's not like you're locked in there. But it's like, some of these things are like 5 hours. So when you see on the TV, a 2 minute clip of a conversation, I'm like, you missed 4 hours and 58 minutes that led to this exact moment that tells so much more of the story. Like for example, the whole intimacy, people were like, the intimacy,
Yeah.
Devonta and Brittany, like he's not attracted to her. Well, it's like, well, no, if you actually showed the clip of her and I in the pods, that was one point where you connected because she was talking about my past 7 year relationship. I was so like, we got so dependent on like the sex, and so I want to wait until marriage. And with her being a woman of faith, I was like, okay, I respect that. So when she was like, I'm breaking down the walls, I told him we can do it. And I was just like, you literally said like you got dependent on that in your last relationship, which you're not trying to repeat that. You're also like made a promise to like your family, like you wanted to wait until marriage. So who am I going to be like if I'm a partner that's just like, okay, yeah, give up your values and what you stand for just because like you think that's what's going to lead me. And it's like that's the last thing I'm looking for in a relationship. Like I don't need that to feel secure. Obviously, at some point, yeah, you want to make sure like intimacy and things are that. But like people were like, oh, he didn't do this. And I'm like, well, actually, she was the one who was like, hey, I'm not going to do this. And then the next episode, she's like, yeah, I said we can. But I'm like, well, if you're trying to do what you truly said you're going to do, then like you should probably like lean into that and own that.
That's actually crazy because like we didn't know any of that and makes so much more sense. It really is
Yeah.
so crazy that like because it was just like okay, let's do it, and you're like, wait, what happened? Like why isn't
Yeah.
he? I guess then if she's telling him,
So
so it is crazy.
the whole time though, you guys didn't do the deed?
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's just like, that was like upon and I'm like if you say you're going to do something as a partner, I'm going to hold you accountable to that. It's like, no, that's what you said you stood for. You're like really connected to your faith. And I was like, I don't want you to feel like that's what I need to get through like this. Cause
Yeah,
I was like, that's not important to me. And there's never been a healthy relationship that was able to fix it. Like
Yeah.
there's no relationship that is healthy if that's the only thing that you can cling on to. And when she was like my past 7 year relationship, we were on and off, and like we became like dependent on that. And I was just like, well, I'm not trying to be that. So
Yeah.
that was an important conversation that was left out. Where again, it was like, oh, he's not attracted to her, and I'm like, well, actually, she was the one who was like, I don't want to do it.
After everything you experienced, do you believe love is blind?
Ooh, great question. Um, I This is so hard to answer. I think you can fall in love with the idea of someone blindly. Absolutely. Like you can fall in love with like that emotional connection, being like, wow, this is an amazing person. And I think I speak for everyone, even Brittany, where she's like, I'm not her normal type. I think like love being completely blind, like I think you have to have like both sides. You have to have the emotional, you have to have the physical, to really make it like work. Can it grow? Absolutely, but there's got to be some sort of. So I don't know. I don't know that I lean one way or another on Love is Blind, so I'll say it's a 50-50 for me.
Yeah. It sounds a little bit like no.
Yeah, we can go with no.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you coming on and we thank you for the clarity because there were so many things out of context and you were able to fill in all those gaps. And I think people will be able to see that listening to this. So thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to talk to you and get to know you better.
Yes.
Of course. Well,
Mhm.
thank you, and nice meeting both of you.
Yeah,
Yes.
and good luck with your new future
Yes.
baby, and I'm
Yeah,
excited. What do you think, is it a boy or
congratulations.
girl?
I'm leaning towards boys selfishly, but we'll see. We'll be dropping a video on Instagram in probably about 2 weeks, so
Yeah.
we'll
Good.
have we'll have the reveal soon.
We can't wait
Awesome.
to
Well, good
see.
luck. Yeah.
All right.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.